So, today we're going to read an article to try and help you practice your business English. This is a more advanced article with complicated words. So, if you need to, feel free to pause and rewind at any point. And at the end of the article, I'm going to go through some of the vocabulary and explain what it means. So, today's article: UN court says countries should act on climate change. The top court of the United States. Let me start again. The top court of the United Nations said on July 23rd that countries could be breaking international law if they fail to take measures to protect the planet from climate change, and nations harmed by its effects could be entitled to reparations. Climate activists immediately cheered the International Court of Justice opinion on nations' obligations to tackle climate change and the consequences they may face if they don't. Failure of a state to take appropriate action to protect the climate system may constitute an internationally wrongful act, Court President Yuji Iwasawa said during the hearing. He called the climate crisis an existential problem of planetary proportions that imperils all forms of life and the very health of our planet. The non-binding opinion, backed by all of the court's 15 judges, could be a turning point in international climate law. Significantly, the court said a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment is a human right. That makes possible the other legal actions, including states returning to ICJ to hold each other responsible, as well as domestic actions. Activists could also bring cases against their own countries for failing to comply with the decision, which ran over 130 pages. The case was led by the Pacific island nation of Vanuatu and backed by more than 130 countries. Vanuatu and other Pacific island nations fear they could disappear under rising sea waters. In the decade up to 2023, sea levels rose by a global average of around 4.3 centimeters, with parts of the Pacific rising higher still. The world has also warmed 1.3 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial times because of the burning of fossil fuels. All UN member states, including a major greenhouse gas producers like United States and China, are parties to the court. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres welcomed the historic advisory opinion. This is a victory for our planet, for climate justice, and for the power of young people to make a difference, he said in the statement. He said in a statement. Young Pacific Islanders initiated this call for humanity to the world, and the world must respond. So there was a lot of complicated vocabulary there, so let's check some of it out. The first word we're looking at is reparation. Reparation. The act of compensating or making up for a wrongdoing, injury, or injustice, often through payment or other means of help. For example, Germany has been paying reparations to Holocaust survivors since the 1950s. The next word is existential. Existential. It's relating to existence. For example, climate change is an existential threat for farmers around the world. The next word, imperil. To put someone or something at risk of being harmed. Now, don't confuse this with the word imperial. It's very close in pronunciation, but means something completely different. Imperial comes from empire, but the word imperil, the one we're looking at, is, for example, cutting funding for the program could imperil the education of thousands of children. The word peril means danger, so to imperil someone is to put someone or something in danger. The next phrase is turning point, a time where an important change takes place. For example, the fall of the Berlin Wall was a major turning point in world history. The next word is advisory. Advisory. Having the power to make recommendations but not enforce them. In business, if someone takes an advisory role, they're normally a senior member of staff and they don't actively work, but they provide wisdom and guidance. For example, an advisory committee was formed to provide expert guidance and recommendations on the project. Finally, the last word, initiate. Initiate. To cause something to begin. During his time as legislator, he initiated important healthcare reforms. Now, it was a complicated article, but I hope you've managed to process and practice some of the vocabulary we've used today. And join us tomorrow and we'll tackle another article. Best way to maintain your high level of English is to practice a little bit every day. Keep it fresh in your memory. Well, I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.